Welcome back to the lecture on Gnosticism versus New Testament trip. We're looking at the origin of Jewish and Christian Gnosticism. Remember, Gnosticism versus New Testament truth is a fight for the mind, the hearts, and the deeds with a long history. But you can't understand how the Jewish and the Christians were intertwined unless you look at the history of Jewish diasporicism. Now, this builds on top of another video series I have on Jewish Second Temple, looking at 525 BC when you get Second Temple Judaism, and the Jews come back from Persia, and then the Greeks rule, and then there's the Maccabean Wars, and then there's the Hasmonean dynasty. And you see the Hasmonean dynasty go into the 6th CE. And then the Roman prefects rule Palestine, 66 to 68. Christian era. There were 6 dramatic causes for the First Jewish War. It was both sides fighting. And then you had the First Jewish War. You have the period between the Jewish wars where there's lots of tension. And finally, a Second Jewish War. So during after the end of the First Jewish War, Titus conquers Jerusalem, takes out many things from the temple. If you'd like to hear that, Tara, please do get a hold of me, and I will be glad to post the video series so you can watch the history. Now, let's look at a map, because here it tells you the actual movement. You see down here is Judea, and there is Jerusalem. And the Jews first went, like the Christians, north toward Antioch and south to Alexandria. The dots on the map show you the large portions of Jewish settlements. Alexandria was one, Antioch was one, Rome was fairly large, but not as large as these two, and Babylon. There's Cappadocia, and way over down here, beyond the picture, we have more of the eastern things, but you have Babylon here. So please realize that the large cities were the following. The very, very large were Egypt, Alexandria, Antioch. Notice how clearly that intertwines between Christian and Jewish. Then you have the large, Damascus, Sidon, Tyre, Arpathia, Persia, Narchia near Babylon, Nibis, Asia Minor, Ephesus, Laodicea, Sardis, Pergam. Sound familiar if you're in the John's Revelation? You have Rome. Not so much in Greece, and you have Cyrene. Notice some of the ones as people went into Rome, into Greece, into Philippi, into Thessalonica. There were some Jewish settlings, but there weren't much. He could never find it. Now there was population, as I mentioned, in Syria, Tarsus, Babylon, Seleucia, Edessa. We find many people later on in Edessa writing. You had Asia Minor, Iconium, Philadelphia, Mysia, Tralles. Those are things mentioned in the New Testament, but Tralles, Siam, Ias, Milet, Pitas, which was outside of Ephesus. You have Greece, Philippi, Thessalonica, Berea, Athens, Corinth, Argos, Delphi, Oros. Italia, there was Ostia, Pompeii, Putella, Seleucia, which is into North Africa, Abyssinia, Polytemos, Tesucia, an Egyptian. There was far down. And north of the Black Sea, which Paul might have been heading toward. But let's look at the two big places. Let's look at the Jewish quarter. Now, notice here in the Jewish quarter, here is the plan of Alexandria, and right up here is a Jewish quarter. And the Christian quarters might have been linked to it. You see that there was a great settlement, so much that you had it. Now, what about Antioch? This is a picture here of Antioch, and notice the key places that the city had was in this protected place where the river went round. But Paul and the rest probably had this Agava, which is along the main city streets, and the Christians had their worship up against the mountains. So there's quite a bit of interacting. And just so we don't leave out Ephesus, Ephesus is sitting over here, and there's Miletus. You see, it's an easy run via sea to Ephesus. So these two places, Corinth, Ephesus, Philippi, Thessalonica, all were linked better by sea, and sea was fairly safe. Well, folks, I hope that understanding that these were Jewish settlements as well as Christian settlements. Here's a picture of how blown up picture seeing how Smyrna, Sardis, Philadelphia, Laodicea were all in the same area. Well, I hope the geography will help you and help you understand why Paul moved in these cycles, why John moved in these cities. It was Christianity really moves city to city and country to country. Well, we'll pick up next the second temple, syncretism, and religious purity. Do tune back in for another lecture as we look at Gnosticism versus New Testament fight for the minds and hearts with a long history.